The man who knows everything, he comes at night. We're going to talk about him on the podcast that knows nothing, and you download in the morning.
Welcome to The Cleaning, a podcast about Apple TV Plus's new show, Silo. My name's Catfish, and I'm pleased as usual to be with my only friend, Bubba.
Catfish.
Yeah.
You did as good as that as Juliette did on her investigation.
Oh, man.
Hey, it's me, Creepy George, as it's scratched on the side of the generator. Guys, we are talking about Season 1, Episode 6 of the Apple TV Plus hit show Silo. Today, Episode 6 is entitled The Relic. During her investigation, Juliette uncovers disturbing secrets about someone she thought she knew. Catfish, I think I know what you're going to rate this, but why don't you let our listeners know what your rating out of 10 is for Episode 6?
All right, Bubba, I'm going to give this episode 7.5 double P's out of 10.
Wait, double P's?
Yeah, that's what I like to call pathetic purges. I thought Forgiveness Day was going to be a lot crazier. Turns out it's not really crazy, and it's all about love, although there is some forgiveness for crimes. From this episode, it's not until episode 6 that I have two people to fully root for without any like, you know, there's this but whatever. I can root for them fully without any qualifications. I'm hashtag Team Kennedy and I'm hashtag Team Cat Lady. These are the only cool people on this show. And so that's why I'm a little bit down on it. We really feel like I should have people that I care about more on this show. At least the lead character. I'm not going to give it any demerits. It didn't have any old-timey futuristic names tonight. So it gets a straight 7.5 for me, Bubba. What was your rating of tonight's episode?
I guess I'll go ahead and give my rating, even though all our listeners have stopped listening after this ridiculous, stupid rant that's been going on for weeks. And Catfish, I've let you do it. I've let you have this Juliette hate because I thought, he's kind of doing a bit. His idea of humor is anti-humor. He's been watching Adult Swim too much. Listeners, fact check me on this. This might be my highest rating of all. I'm going to go 9 double C's out of 10.
Double C's?
Yeah. 9 double C's stands for correct catfish.
What?
9 correct catfishes out of 10 because I've thought you've been doing a bit, but in this episode, Juliette was hashtag the worst. She is so rough in this episode that Paul Billings, who may be a judicial, spy, he may be a judicial plant. I felt sorry for him based on what she did in this episode.
She tried to get him to clean, for God's sakes.
Yes, what she did to him, once again, if he's not a judicial turncoat or spy or whatever, if he isn't, what she did was terrible. And so I felt bad. I really felt bad that for 90% of this episode, that Juliette was really just so driven in her justice for George that, this was by any means necessary. And a lot of these means, Billings said it best. There's a way to do this. This ain't it. But I'm going to go 9 out of 10. Why? Because the last 10% of the episode, it got me. I'm like, okay, I get it. I remember why this story can be so twisty and crazy. I loved the ending. The ending was okay, here's some answers. There are not many answers, but here's some answers. Yeah, you thought, there were friends of the silo, but there may be the friends of the silo may just be watching you. They're not getting rumors. They're just saying, I heard this thing that I watched on my monitor. Whoa, I loved it.
A little dusting, a little spying. It makes the world go round.
Loved that ending. And for everybody on YouTube, I'm wearing a spoiler right now in my sweatshirt. I've had a spoiler behind me this whole time. Yes, that's right. I went to the University of Georgia, which, as that book proves, has many great tourist destinations in this great state, the biggest state east of the Mississippi. So 9 out of 10. There were little things that still you wonder about how this show has been built and formatted. Like, how many weeks now has it been since there was that flicker of green grass and blue skies when the generator went down? Nobody's talking about it at all. Yeah. And then this show is filled with lies. It's talking about, in that book at the end, she's looking at the Chattahoochee National Forest and she flips a page and then she sees some people in a whitewater raft with helmets on. That river is nowhere near the Chattahoochee National Forest.
Lies.
When you go whitewater rafting in my home state of Georgia, you go to the Chattooga, the Nantahala. There's some good rapids in whitewater rafting that I really love. Not in that. Of course, I'm teasing. Listeners, 9 out of 10. This really sparked my love back into Silo and into this world and into this book that I've been praising to high heaven.
Even though Bubba, that they're going to completely not follow up on
they could. That's true. They
their
totally
teases
could.
As they do at the end of the episode. Let's just move on to something else.
Listen, they could be that way, but for me, I was into it and I was so excited. I went on Reddit and I was like, hey guys, I've been grumbling about how I think they've really been making some odd, what I consider incorrect choices in adapting this great book. But this ending was great. I loved it. I think that maybe this show can stick the ending to season 1 and it'll be great. And guess who replied to me on Reddit, Catfish? Author Hugh Howey.
One of your thirsty fans.
Author Hugh Howey responded to me on Reddit and he said, consider the ending well and truly stuck. Whoa, that's some big talk there, author Hugh. I hope season 1 really knocks it out of the park in the remaining 4 episodes. So they've made a lot of what I've considered questionable choices, and I've been at times lukewarm on the season, going only 7 out of 10 and that kind of stuff. And for most of this episode, I was like, there's a way you could have Juliette do almost the same thing, but have her appear smarter and appear more empathetic. But in the end, I'm into it. 9 out of 10. Listeners, forget all that negative talk Catfish had.
Okay.
He didn't even bother to learn Team Cat Lady's name. Catfish.
I just want to refer to her as, the reason why I did that is in case people didn't know her name.
Okay. Regina.
Fine.
Regina.
But people at the end of the episode are going to be like, who is Regina? I wanted to say, fine. Team Cat.
How about them Team George's ex, Catfish? You could have said that, but instead you just remember the big fat cat. And you're like,
because that cat was so huge.
It was pretty big.
What? That cat, you know what she does whenever there's a burial, before they put the dirt on the people, that cat is definitely getting a lot of apples.
Oh my goodness. Now, listeners, if you've sat through this, what I would consider terrible opening to a podcast, and you're new to us here at Double PHQ, I thought that we needed to say this because we did get some feedback where a listener said, hey, I found Double P through the Only Murders in the Building podcast. And I thought, oh boy, we should talk to people if Silo's the only way they know us. If you're listening to us just because of Silo, we do what our listeners love to mock as a bunch of random post-show, after-show podcasts about shows. And we've been doing it almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years since we've been doing this.
Holy cow.
We tend to have 3 categories. That's right. 3 categories of podcasts we do.
Let's hear.
The biggest category is number 1. It's of stuff we've read or loved the novels. And they're coming out with a TV show based on this book or book series we've loved. And so we podcasted on it. We did that with Game of Thrones, American Gods, Dublin Murders, Emerald City, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Knurl, The Last Kingdom, Magpie Murders, Lovecraft Country, The Rook, The Terror, Why the Last Man, The Wheel of Time, The Lord of Rings, and now the Silo book series. So that's generally what we do. You're thinking this is very eclectic. It's because we've read the source material. We love the source material. And so we want to bring that passion to covering the television adaptation. The second type of thing we do is if a series is not based on books that we've read, but instead it's about other media, maybe a film or film series or TV shows that we just happen to be experts on. So we do our Parsec Passion podcast because we really know a lot about Star Wars. We did our Twin Peaks Gifted and Damned podcast because we were big experts on Twin Peaks. Catfish.
People love that.
We did Ash versus the Evil Dead because of Catfish's expert knowledge on the Evil Dead films.
And nobody cared about that, but we kept doing it. It was because that show was great.
We were podcasting before it was on Netflix. That was a bit of a mistake. Probably should have waited for that. And then the third thing is sometimes we just do shows that we love and are interested in. We've done Dark, Only Murders in the Building, The Crown, Babylon Berlin, and of course, everybody's favorite Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. So if you can suffer through these terrible intros and our bickering back and forth, if you like us covering something with passion like this, please subscribe to us and follow us on all the shows we do, because we want you to be a double L loyal listener.
Oh yeah.
Like so many of our favorite people on these podcast feedbacks are.
And you know what? You might find that your eclecticism matches up with ours. And, we might introduce you to a show that you'll find interesting.
Or we'll introduce you to Penny Dreadful City of Angels.
To be fair, nobody hated that show more than I did.
Okay. All right. Hey, so please subscribe. Pay attention to us. We're going to have our book talk at the end of the podcast. No spoilers before that. The book talk will have a little bit of non-spoiler talk, but then we're going to have to say goodbye to Catfish and get on with it with some
Bubba,
spoilers.
I noticed some of the feedback. You better really start doing some spoilers in that spoiler section.
We're going to start.
People are very upset. They're like, where are the dang spoilers?
We're going to get to it at the very end, and we'll give you guys warning so you can drop out. Catfish, it's time for Judicial Debate.
All right, let's get to it. Attorney Catfish.
Now, Catfish, I wrote this before I saw the episode, so maybe it might be especially hard to do. But it was based on episode 5's Sims talking about, hey, I'm doing this work to keep 10,000 people alive. Now, we see his work is real shadowy. He seems to be behind murders, but he was kind of justifying it, saying, listen, are you willing to do anything for the silo? And so I thought, let's have a debate. Now, we're actually going to have it twice. Once here in the non-spoiler part, and then later in the spoiler part.
Oh, wow.
Is there a way, now that you've seen they're not only killing and murdering people, but they are flat out Big Brother watching you in your home? Is there any way that you could say these bad guys are actually doing the right thing or good? Any way you could spin it? What are they saying? How would you defend this horrific behavior?
I mean, I'll defend it in general, and then later on, I think I'll want to talk about Billings specifically.
Okay.
In general, I would say this is a very limited, closed ecosystem. And as we've seen, it's a very tenuously balanced ecosystem. People who are unhappy can't leave or go anywhere. And one person could cause a lot of trouble. After all, everybody on this show basically thinks they're the only one keeping the silo going anyway. Juliette and Sims both believe that, and Sims' father did. So I would say it's a very delicate ecosystem. And because of that, you need to sort of head trouble off at the path. In a delicate ecosystem, there's justification for trying to snuff out problems before they begin. And the way to do that is to watch people. Now, again, that's not a society that we would accept here, but you have to consider this situation. And there's already been, at least as far as everybody knows, a rebellion before that caused a lot of trouble. And so to stop a rebellion again, you need to really get into people's business. Now, there's a lot of people to watch. I'll have some questions later on about why some things haven't already been noted that we've seen some of our characters do.
Oh, yeah.
So that's now a little bit of a question mark, but I would say that's the justification for it, is for what's happening. Just in general, without naming any specific names or activities.
Catfish, you're going exactly where in my own head on this debate I would go. In our planet, in our world, in reality, one person can do an awful lot of damage. We've seen one person show up at an event with a subatomic machine gun and cause a lot of damage. One person was behind the Oklahoma City bombing, which is another horrific event. One person can do so much terrible damage.
Right. Not even to mention one person doing a job for 4 years and really caused a lot of trouble.
You just don't want anybody to download this. You're like, how can I get out of doing all this work, Doctor? So
I didn't say which 4 years.
So one person can do a whole lot of damage.
Right.
Taking everything at face value. If this is the last 10,000 people on Earth,
Yeah.
One person destroys the generator, or one person lets in that toxic air, or one thing does this. There's no humanity at all. Do the ends justify the means? I would hope not. I would really hope you wouldn't have to be this crazy and this big brother if you truly believe, hey, we're all between us and extinction. But I could imagine that if I really did think that it was, we're either going to go extinct as a species, or I'm going to have to, really get rid of people's rights and stuff. I could see it. Listeners, what do you think? This is, after all our silly talk, this is a big, serious discussion of how do you excuse, murder of a mayor, murder of a deputy, murder of your accomplice, spying on people in their home. I mean, this is horrific, terrible things.
The real slippery slope is could actually cause damage to, well, this person's kind of inconveniencing me. So it's a real slippery slope.
What if you thought if one more person dies, apples will go extinct? So we can't everybody has to live forever now.
Right. All right, Bubba.
Yeah.
That leads me right into my response to the question we ask every week, which is based on evidence that you've seen in this episode only. Do we today have things better off than the people that are living in the silo in this world? And Bubba, my answer is, after talking about how closely people are scrutinized in this world, obviously we have it worse, because people aren't just watching what we're doing, they're tracking everything we search and buy and write.
You don't think anybody on Forgiveness Day was like, yeah, go buy all the crafts in the shops. Keep track of what she's spending her credits on.
Right. Somebody walks by and goes, hey, are you interested in these sneakers? And you're like, I just looked at those sneakers at the store. What the heck?
How about this? What if what if you're out, hey, visiting somebody on a different floor for Freedom Day, and suddenly you run into, I'm a Nigerian prince, and I need lots and lots of...
All right, Bubba.
Yeah.
What is your answer? Based on this episode, do we have it better or worse than people in the silo?
We have it worse, because when I log into my OnlyFans account, nobody watches. Okay, now I'm responsible for everybody.
Oh my God. Holy cow. I can't believe you went there.
How many unsubscribers? How many people have unsubscribed?
That was spit take worthy right there.
Listeners, we know you don't exist after this opening podcast, but we are trying. We're trying to make the idea is you're one of us as we sit around and talk.
If I had known you were going to say that, I wouldn't even bother to make notes on the rest of this episode. You've chased everyone away.
Me? You hold on now.
I have to imagine you and your OnlyFans account.
Well, you were saying people were thirsting me.
I hope you're actually doing real spoilers for your OnlyFans account. Real spoilers. That must be what you're saving it for.
Hey everybody. All right,
let's get into this. Let's get into this dang episode.
So now we're going to get into the episode recap. You're wondering why we started the podcast with this. We haven't done anything before this. Right. This is literally, we decided to cut out all the chit chat, jibber jabber, and go straight to the episode recap. Part.
All right. Flashback City, Bubba. We've got two different storylines here. I'm so glad we get to find out why George is worth solving his murder.
What do you think? Did you enjoy this flashback more than the one of young Juliette? Or this one seemed to at least have quicker scenes, like we got through what information they wanted to get across quicker in my mind. Do you like this flashback any better?
I mean, except for all the philosophizing at the end, which I was happy for, because at least it got to the point of like the question that they seem to set up here, because they're not giving us the answer. The question they keep talking about, but no one really cares about. I mean, the question they have set up for all the viewers that they want to know is, what's outside?
Sure.
Now, they keep not really bringing it up, but that's the question that's still on everybody's mind. So at least George does a little philosophizing about that. But before all that,
yeah, we got to have
we've
some
got a little, what I like to call double F.
double F.
Flashback frolicking.
Flashback frolicking. It was adult content.
Yeah,
they were checking out
frolicking.
They were checking out each other's tats. And George has a tattoo of a seashell. And at the time, I even kind of noticed that if like they have shells, maybe they dug into the earth and there's some shells down there. What do you think about his tattoo there, Catfish?
I thought his tattoo wasn't just the tattoo alone is an illegal relic.
Bag it, Paul Billings. Let's go. Juliette, in the next flashback we see, she's playing with the Pez dispenser. Okay. And she teases him and calls him Creepy George. And I thought to myself, I actually kind of agree with that nickname. And we see George was in on the infamous Miami Heat tape theft. He was part of it.
Oh, my God. This is the one thing that Juliette is right about, as from all the things she said so far, is duct tape saves lives, Bubba. You can use it for anything. I mean, it fixes anything. I mean, let's say you got like a shot and you were bleeding. You can duct tape yourself up and stop bleeding. Duct tape is the magic material.
Well, George, who, I don't know if I'd need justice for George after all the stuff we learned about him in this episode, but he does ask good questions. I'll give him that. She's like, why are you risking your life for this thing? You don't even know what it is. And George says, let me read it to you. He says, if these things aren't worth risking our lives for, why do they make it a risk to our lives to have them? I think that's a good question.
Do you? I'm glad, because we disagree on this, because I think that's just dumb circular logic.
Is it circular logic, or is it logic that goes in a circle?
Yeah. That's quite a push. Bubba, at first I thought it was a syllogism, but I looked up the definition of syllogism, and I was completely wrong.
Well. The one thing this part of the episode is trying to make us do, especially the early flashbacks, are why is Juliette so driven in justice for George? The one thing I noticed is that when she's with him in these flashbacks, she talks more than she ever talks in any of these other scenes. Like she is forming long sentences and then following it with another long sentence. This is not a Juliette that we see in any other part of the show. She can be herself around George. And George gives her a token of his appreciation by this infamous broken watch.
You know what else I realized about George? And maybe he was like this before, but I didn't realize it till now. He really talks a lot about himself. It's his main focuses are what's going on in the world and himself. His focus on Juliette is next to nothing. Later on, Regina, Justice for Cat Lady, George's ex, she says something like he doesn't love anybody, but what he should have said was he only loves himself.
Ouch.
Now, he does try to upsell the broken watch by saying the key to answers to the questions of life, the silo, and everything. But she is not buying it.
She's not interested in this stuff yet.
It tells him to shut up and satisfy her needs. And I just put here, inside joke, hashtag epiphany.
That is an inside joke. I was going to make the joke, shut up and satisfy her needs. Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I... So...
you know what? But what about like, and then let's say you had a penny for like 10 minutes after that, everyone said, well, never mind, just shut up.
That's it. You just don't want listeners. I keep it classy always. Okay, so Juliette has fixed the watch. I thought to myself, how did she fix this watch without any sort of magnification to see inside it? But you get into trouble with magnification, so she just fixed it. And they get to the big questions, Catfish. I want to read them. George says these are the big questions. What's outside? What's beyond what the sensors can see? Why are we here? How long have we been here? How much time do we have left? And then the big one, what if everything you know to be true, everything you've been told by the people you love was in fact just one big lie? Now, he didn't say, why don't we have elevators? That seems to have been your big question, Catfish. You didn't care about any of this stuff. For weeks, you've been asking about elevators and escalators. Let me ask you a question. Of these giant questions that George asks Juliette, how many do you think will be answered by the end of season 1?
I mean, like I said, I mean, I really realized that George just really did get what he deserved. But at least in this episode, someone is talking about the outside, even if it is dead a-hole George. Even though this has been set up as a huge mystery, it
Yep.
seems like we're really dancing around it. I would say the question that's going to be, I mean, like, why are we here? That's metaphysical,
Well, why are we here in the silo? I'm sure
right?
is what
I
it
will
means.
think we'll find out what's outside.
Okay.
How much time do we have left? I don't think they'll find that out, or
Mm-hmm.
how long we've been here. What's beyond what the sensor can see? Yeah, sure. I'd say that's part of the outside.
All right. Do you believe, how about this? Do you believe that everything that the people in the silo know to be true is one big lie?
I would say yes, but following upon what I've said in previous episodes, I'm still not sure that there are people who know the full lie. In other words,
Yeah, okay, that's
they
good.
don't know the truth, and I think there are some people, judicial, whatever, who have passed along some truths, but I don't think they know all truths.
Listeners, what do you think about these questions George provided? Do you think you're going to get answers in season 1 by the end of season 1? Will you be upset if you don't get some answers to
Well,
these
according
questions
to
by the end of
Hugh,
season 1?
the ending was well and truly stuck.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean these answers are given. Once again, we want to hear from you listeners. We're going to go through your feedback at the end, and it's so important to us. If you're on YouTube, go down, first and foremost, like the video. If you like this type of stuff, please subscribe. Go down and give us your feedback. We really do care about it. We want to know what you think. A lot of times your feedback, and when we review it on the end, it opens our eyes to things about the show.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're on audio podcast, we always ask you to please subscribe and give us a review, a written review, type something up on your podcast app of choice. And you can always hit us up on social media at PHQ, Twitter at PHQ, Instagram at PHQ, Facebook.com/PHQ. We really.
And randomly on iHeartRadio.
Heck yeah. All right, Catfish, let's talk about the present timeline in the show. We won't deal with these flashbacks anymore. What's so funny is that because we're not binging this show, it's been a week since the last episode, we see that Juliette is going to go in and find out about Doug Trumbull's motive. And I thought, oh, thank God. I really got frustrated in last episode where she's like, oh, we don't know Doug Trumbull's motive. Finally, we're going to get answers. But no, immediately I thought, all right, she's not silly. She's going to figure out the motive. And then I went, oh, yeah, this is a ruse to find out about George.
DGAF, she doesn't care.
Does not care. She breaks into his apartment, Catfish. What do you think about this? Juliette, that's maybe 2 episodes in a row where breaking and entering as a cop without a search and seizure permit.
I mean, on one hand, she is a one-person illegal search and seizure / evidence planning wrecking machine. On the other hand, it's kind of what I was talking about before when you were talking about, is there a justification for the watching?
Mm-hmm.
Just, that even officially in the pact that the rules would be a little bit more lenient for the cops. It seems to me they could have gotten that written into the rules post-rebellion, but the other people do seem that Billings and also the guy who had the key, or didn't have the key because Judicial has different locks. Whoa.
Right. Yeah. Whoa.
Both of them seem to act like that was still not right. Juliette doesn't care. She's, as we learn near this episode, only in this job to learn one thing: who killed her dead cheating ex-boyfriend.
Well, I love, once again, I was very frustrated by Juliette in this episode, and we'll get to it. But at the beginning, her planting this Pez dispenser so somebody else finds it, not her, smart move. I'll tip my cap to Juliette. This is the Juliette that I like.
This is my problem. Okay. I'm glad you like her in this case, but all of Juliette's actions, if it was anybody else, or if it was maybe presented differently, but her actions make me feel bad for people that are horrible, or we at least expect are horrible. Because poor Patsy Doug. I mean, okay, he's a killer, but he was just trying to get a sweet gig. That's why he killed. And then he gets besmirched post-death, or at least an attempted besmirching post-death.
Well, the person who really takes it on the chin, as we've already mentioned, is Paul Billings. He's like, uh-oh, we're going to need a relics bag. Dun, dun, dun. And then, hey, we have some flashbacks. Welcome to Forgiveness Holiday. And these are signs that are posted. And these signs look like they took a lot of, this isn't like you print something out of a printer and you think paper's precious. But these look like somebody made these signs. They look really good. And the sign reads, in light of recent incidents and in the spirit of goodwill, community, and commerce, citizens are encouraged to let go of past grievances, to travel beyond familiar levels, to see old friends, to give gifts, and to spend credits in the marketplace where crafts of all type can be acquired. Your Mayor, Bernard Holland. All together, we thrive.
So this, Bubba, makes me think that maybe Bernard not only wants the job, as we suspect, but is a better politician than we think, because this is great publicity for him. It's like a free, fun day. They want you to go out there. Here's your COVID money. Go out there and spend it. Let's get the economy going.
Yep. Did you see the old man sitting in a chair who was being carried up a flight of stairs? They really are trying to get people to go to a new level and see people.
What I was hoping, though, is when they carried that guy up, they would just throw him down the center of the silo, because I was really hoping that Forgiveness Day would be the purge day, and that's why I gave it the rating I did. And it was not enough purging.
Juliette here, it's later on. She still has the Pez dispenser. Nerd Paul Billings is like, excuse me, these are the rules. It's been this amount of time. You got to turn this into judicial. And I think we're beginning to see where he might be a judicial plant, he may not be. But at the very least, Paul Billings is really kind of a by-the-book, almost to the letter T guy. We find out he's not later on in the episode with his signs of the syndrome. But in the workplace, have you ever seen such a stickler for rules? This guy's crazy.
He knows the rules, and he tries to follow them. You're right. He would make a horrible, horrible sheriff.
Stop that. Come on. He won the pact competition 4 times.
That's what I'm saying. He is a spelling bee nerd. But and I'm going to get more evidence later that Billings is actually the right pick for this job.
Wow.
Juliette, by the way, quotes part of the pact to him. She's like, well, I know this, blah, 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 blah. Yep. But he is so good. He's like, yeah, you know what? If you read like 2 sentences more, you'll learn that you're only 25% right. Fail.
No,
Juliette.
Listen, my book report on Great Expectations was it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I'm pretty sure that's A Tale of Two Cities, maybe.
Nonetheless,
I just read the first sentence. That's what I needed to learn.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So then they do go to judicial. She gets convinced to go. Sims is outside. And then Julia is noticing Billings. Is he giving her hand signals, Bubba?
No, he's got the syndrome. He's trying. His fingers are shaking. It's almost like it manifests in just one of his hands and one of his arms. And he's using his other hand to like hold down the hand that might shake. Wow.
And I thought he was signaling, I have a hand cramp.
Hey, we got to go see this judge, which we'd been hearing about for a while. She got introduced last week. And of course, she's not doing well. And I see anybody not doing well, and I think, get another bushel of apples ready, boys.
Let's go. We got
somebody
go
else.
into overdrive on this. No, I don't understand why she puts up the blinds too. That seems a little weird. She can do whatever she wants. I don't know if that'll come back. I don't know what it means, but it does seem weird. Like she's got ultimate power. She can meet with who she wants. I don't know. Juliette does say we found this relic was found about 10 hours ago. Because we'd said it had been 12 hours. I think about maybe a bit of an exaggeration, right?
She's like, what's the legal limit for this relic? 12 hours. We found this 11 hours and 58 minutes ago.
Yeah, we found this about within a 24-hour period.
I called this a correct Catfish episode.
Yep.
This drove me crazy throughout, but this was the moment where I started really having problems with Juliette. Why in the hell is she wearing this watch? Holston told her not to wear the watch. Now, I suppose what the idea is that, hey, let's ruffle some feathers and see who reacts by wearing this relic. It just was not smart to wear it. And Sims busts her on the watch. He's like, yeah, not only do I know about relics better than your lame ass system, but I know whose watch that is. That's George Wilkins' watch, the guy you said was murdered when he wasn't. Like, it just drove me crazy. I want to like Juliette. Juliette is so likable and wonderful in the book, but this move, to me, it came across as dumb.
It really, really does. Not to mention the fact that I'm surprised later on she sees her buddy slash obvious judicial plant Lucas in the cafeteria. Everyone knows about this watch.
Right. Yeah, I was going to joke last week. You said everybody got the memo that said, hey, if you see Juliette, she's not qualified for the job. This week, you see Juliette, be sure to mention that relic she's wearing on her wrist. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, Sims, last week, you and I, we had a debate. Is the judge really above Sims, or is Sims kind of doing some stuff on his own? For a period here in her office, Sims is the one taking the lead, Catfish. He's the one who's saying, okay, all right, you want to do an investigation, you can, but you got to take my boy Paul Billings with you.
Yeah, and Sims says that people can give back relics on Forgiveness Day without facing legal consequences. This is about as purge as this episode.
Catfish, just watch The Purge so you could get your fill in and then watch this show for what
all the purges. Purge.
Juliette, I assume, still doesn't really trust Paul Billings too much. She tries to get rid of him immediately, but he, stickler for rules, he's like, hey, I got to be with you. They said I got to be with you. If it's not me, it's judicial goons. And so she takes him to bother poor Patrick Kennedy. Again, this poor guy can't get a break.
Mama, she says, I know a guy who's been busted for relics and he owes me one. And I thought to myself, why does Kennedy owe her one? Because was it because she let Marnes beat him only half to death? Is that it? He owes her half of his life?
No, because Doug Trumbull was going to frame him for murder. He was either going to be forced to clean or go down to the mines. That's why he owes her one.
Yeah, but Doug Trumbull had not planted the Pez in his apartment. She didn't save him from anything.
Well, okay, that's Doug's mistake. You don't think he was going to keep trying to plant it on Patrick Kennedy? Of course he was.
Well, my presumption was he plants it where he thinks it is, and then the cops show up, and whoever is actually living there is like, I
have an alibi for that time. No, your arrest. Now, why did I go 9 out of 10? Not just because I love the end, even though the end was really the main reason. Listeners, you know what I love. Ice cold disses. And Patrick Kennedy, I might be on his team with you, Catfish.
Yes.
He is dissing poor Billings. At this point, once again, he might be a judicial spy, the worst guy ever, but I'm feeling so sorry for Billings. Patrick Kennedy, who the F are you? You know, the old guys at least had the decency to identify themselves. Billing, I'm Deputy Billings, new deputy sheriff. Like I give a F. Now, wait a minute. You're the one who said, who the F are you? Then you insult him more by answering the question.
I'm telling you, Kennedy is the best. And just how we said we've got a mini Adam Driver.
Yeah.
I think Kennedy is their faux Oscar Isaac.
Oh, yeah, I could definitely see that. Definitely see that.
Juliette asked Kennedy if he knows about legal relics. And he says he doesn't know. But then he looks. Here's the thing that I thought I completely misinterpreted. He looks up at a guy, and I thought he was saying, that guy. And then
I did too.
That guy looks at him, and I'm like, well, that was pretty dumb. We're going to need more apples because they just saw you identify him. But I think afterwards, since it wasn't that guy, I think what he was doing was like, we need to go somewhere else because like people can't see me talking to the cops because my rep is going to be bad. But he then is also smart. Says Kennedy, he's smart. He's like, I know how you operate. Yeah, sure. Today's Forgiveness Day. You're not going to bust me today. But then tomorrow or the next day or the next day after that, I'm going to be on a list and I'm going to be screwed. And then he calls Billings judicial face. which I
Ouch.
love also.
Ice cold.
And Kennedy then realizes this is personal for Juliette. This is the other thing that happened in this episode. Everyone goes, I know where that watch came from, and obviously you were the one who was in love with George. I mean, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
Kennedy is the smartest and coolest person on this show
Yeah.
by far. The only reason why he's better than Regina, a.k.a. Cat Lady, is she's the reason I called her Cat Lady, because she's a little...
This is intercut with some scenes, and let's just go through them real quick, where Sims is frustrated by the Pez dispenser. And then, he searches in his database. On
Which he said, they've got their own database.
Yeah, and oh snap, it comes back immediately.
Oh,
they
boy.
know this relic. It's object 1175.
Okay.
He even says, hey, go to this ledger to find out more about it, and that it's pre-silo. He's reading this ledger, and it is filled, it's kind of hard to read based on the angle, but it's filled with somebody who has no idea what a Pez dispenser is trying to explain it. Like, it's real funny. It's like, well, it's got this, you can bend the head back so it reveals this shaft, and the words are indented Pez on the sides. We don't know why. What is especially crazy is in I believe the ledger, it says the person who had this relic, George Wilkins. So they really know stuff, Catfish. They really know it.
My question is, why did they let George live as long as they did?
Right. Is it because, well, that is a relic and it's bad, but it's like, if we need to bust him for having a relic, at some time in the future, we can bust him for this one. But for now, he hasn't done anything too terrible. Like, it's odd. It's a great question. Now, back with Juliette.
Yeah.
The name they were given. So she and Billings, they go to the woman with this giant cat. And I saw this giant cat. And for a minute, I was like, I don't want to know anything else in the show. Just show me how this cat got, limited resources. Look at the size of this cat. It's Regina Jackson.
Yeah.
And of course, she got the memo. Juliette walks in. Oh, I know that watch. That was my boyfriend's watch. Ruh-roh.
Holy cow, Bubba. I'm like, George was two-timing. And then I tried to put it all together, right?
Okay.
So George died a while ago. So I'm trying to figure out how she could still consider her boyfriend, because George died before Holston met Juliette. That's how Holston met Juliette.
Right.
Then there was a period of time between when Holston and Juliette met for Juliette to be pissed that Holston didn't do anything, and then Holston goes out.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, that gap seemed like it was at least 6 months since George died. Juliette says a few, but it feels like it was longer than that. To me, seems like it was longer than that. And then, so if George wasn't two-timing, then it was even a time before that. So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, maybe one of these episodes we'll try to create a timeline, because you're right.
All right.
That order has to be the order it went in. So very odd. Maybe just as odd is we know George. We've seen George.
Yeah.
This, I don't want to be sexist. But
George.
Is this a cat fight over George? I mean,
man.
What is going on? Regina and Juliette. Ouch.
Juliette is catching strays herself now, because Regina says any fool would see he's not the type of guy you spend forever with. A zing and a zing.
Man, and this is, once again, Billings might be a judicial spy, but at this point, I feel so sorry for this guy. He realizes he's caught between these two women, and he keeps trying to stay on target. So he's like, so back about the relic. No. Nobody listens to him. Regina, the last time I saw George, he was headed down. That's where he was headed. Moving on to the next thing, the next person.
I mean, this is time for Cat Lady to move on, right? I mean, she seems really burned by George, which seems a little weird considering shortly we're going to find out that Regina's got more problems to think of, because she seems to be a little cray-cray.
Oh, without question. Now, George, he was definitely, based on the story we're told, he was using Regina. This sounds terrible. And Juliette, I guess, is trying to defend George. Or what was she doing when she suddenly, calls out, was your relationship sanctioned? Or was she trying to find out, wait a minute, was George willing to get into a sanctioned relationship with you where he wouldn't with me?
She's just, it really feels like she's just striking out after all the shots she's taken.
She's got a terrible poker face.
Oh, there's so many ways in which she's just bad. So much so that, again, I was on Team Cat Lady. When the Team Cat Lady's like, hey, I got one more thing to say to you.
Oh, no.
When he told you he loved you, did you believe him? But boom, that is another hot shot, ice cold diss. Oh, so good. It is so.
Do you think Billings is upset that he took this job? You know, like as they're leaving Cat Lady Regina's place, he's trying to play it cool. Like, boy, her place smelled like cat food, right?
This is part of my last week. I was like, Billings seems like a decent dude, so obviously he must not be. But I gotta say, this was even more decent here. You know, I mean, again, it's ridiculous for Juliette to say, was your relationship sanctioned? Because everyone is realizing, hey, you know what? You had a relationship with George. You got a relic on your arm, unsanctioned. You don't know the pact. Like, forget being the sheriff. It's cleaning time, Juliette.
Well, okay, back in the sheriff's station. You know, this isn't too deep into the episode, and Juliette's terrible job at this, in my opinion, really comes home to roost. Sims is ready to totally bust her. He's brought the mayor there. We looked at this, and it was George's Pez dispenser.
Right.
George's Pez dispenser wasn't in his apartment when he died.
And it's really interesting.
Going on?
It's like, how interesting it is. You've got George's watch. You were part of the team that found George's Pez dispenser. And Juliette says, I never received anything from him. Then she says, I mean, I did get one thing, but it wasn't a relic. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Now we're just talking to ourselves, so we can say anything we want. That's completely fine. But Sims had the receipts on Juliette, and he's got her dead to rights. And we know Sims in this case is correct. But Mayor Bernard turns around and busts Sims. I loved this moment. He's like, wait a minute. Did Trumbull do the search of George Wilkins' apartment? Maybe he took it. It's like,
how about the search teams are anonymous? I mean, Judicial can do whatever they want.
Oh yeah, that was a way of saying yes, Trumbull was in the search, but Trumbull wasn't in the search. You know what I mean? That was just weak.
Yeah.
Now Bernard, even though I love that he did that, he's like, wait a minute, there's still no motive for Doug Trumbull to kill people, the mayor and the sheriff. You can't just wave this off. So Bernard still, maybe he knows he's got to kiss Judicial's ass. He's like, okay, we can't have things destabilized. But then to me, when he said this line where he says, I know not everyone believes this, but I've found some mysteries are best left unsolved. To me, it was like a subtle and maybe not subtle message to Juliette, like, hey, I'm going to protect you here. You're the new sheriff, but you got to stop doing this stuff. That's the way I read it. How did you read it?
I didn't know whether he was covering for her. It seems like he's just keeping the peace and telling everyone to chill.
That's a good point.
I thought maybe
you got to keep Judicial stable. That's a great point.
He in this case, I thought also he's better at politics. I gave him credit for, which is good because he is clearly cannot be good for IT and data, because if you've got a mystery, you got to solve it.
Yeah.
If you're an IT or data, so obviously he's better politician. So much for Juliette's master plan to get them to go along with her investigating George's death. I don't even know why she'd care about it anymore. George was double G.
Double G.
Jerk George.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Gigolo George with all these ladies, ladies on every floor.
Yeah.
Once again, Billings, I keep pointing out that, I don't want to say anything. Book reader. But Billings unloads on Juliette, and he was exactly right. It was her stupid attitude, the whole thing, her wearing the watch. And he was the patsy. He was the fall guy. She set up her own person. She's no different from Judicial setting somebody up. Now, Juliette, whoa. She's on this Justice for George mission, and she's, once again, take no prisoners. And she didn't take any prisoners. She's like, dude, you've got the syndrome. And we explained last week, I don't think the show has done a great job explaining it. The syndrome is you've been trapped inside your whole life, underground your whole life, you're claustrophobic, and it comes out and you get, shaky, you kind of lose control.
Yeah.
So she's saying, listen, you read the pack, You're not allowed to do this, dude. You should turn yourself in.
I'm so glad that the syndrome is so important, an important thing, since they took until the very last episode to bring it up, and now it's so important. So clearly, thanks a lot. This is a great setup of this syndrome for it to be so important right after we just found about it. If I was Billings, I would have sold her out right then.
He could have.
When she was
He
talking
certainly
to Sims,
could have.
he could have said, she knew where this place was. She could have gone to set this up. You're right about that. She had unsanctioned relationship with this guy, George.
Yep.
She's completely off the rails, and they could have gotten rid of her, which is why I think Billings is part of the reason I think Billings is not so bad. I mean, boom. Because he could have done that before this was before she said, I know about your shakes. He didn't know she knew about the shakes. I would have sold her down the river right then.
Once again, I went 9 out of 10. I didn't like how Juliette was behaving in a lot of it, but it did have some great snapping dialogue. I consider this exchange perfect. Billings. You know, everybody here in the office says the reason Holston and Marnes were a great team was because they looked out for each other. Juliette snaps back, and look what that got them. Oh, dang. Ouch. Things have been just terrible. Things have been icy. Things have been prickly. Juliette has been really not playing it as smart as I would like her to play it throughout this whole thing. We need people to cool down. She's leaving the office. Who does she run into? Yeah. How do you say his name again? Catfish? Copernicus?
Copernicus.
He is swinging for the fences, man.
Mm-hmm.
He is going. He is like, he likes a girl. He hasn't seen her much, but maybe this is the way you meet people in the silo. You know, maybe they don't have bars you go to. You just got to see them and make your case. What are your thoughts on Lucas? Is he a honeypot trap sent by somebody to get her?
100%. He's a judicial plant.
Whoa.
But it's not working on her because she's not used to someone focusing on her instead of being a philosophizing, preening egotist.
Walker? Oh, you meant George. Sorry.
Now Walker's catching strays.
Oh my goodness. Now Paul Billings, once again, how are we sympathizing with the guy who just came from judicial? He goes home to his wife, Kathleen, and their baby Claire. And Paul has these shakes. He has these syndromes. His wife seemingly has a way he can fight it or calm it for a bit. I'll say this, and maybe this is unfair. I really don't know anything about the syndrome, this made-up disease, but somebody with the shakes like that shouldn't have a gun. And then he's worried that he's going to pass it on to his daughter. This is making us as viewers really go in Billings' camp, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I mean, when you say, why do we feel good about Billings? Has he done one thing that's wrong? He's covered for Juliette, who's horrible. He hasn't planted evidence. He hasn't killed anyone. He has a wife and child, and he's very caring. He seems like an upstanding guy. Yeah. He seems like not an a-hole like many people on this show.
Well, if he's an upstanding guy and he's not reporting things back to judicial, like you just said, he didn't turn Juliette in. Why was judicial the people who suggested him first and pushing for him so hard and almost willing to murder Marnes to get him in as a deputy?
Well, that is actually a great question, since he's won the Pact B 4 years. Why? And he is such a rules follower the rest of the time. Why is he cutting Juliette slack here? He really shouldn't, and I wish he wouldn't.
Well, I wonder. Okay, I'll try to answer my own question.
Okay, do it.
Maybe you love that Billings is a stickler for the rules, and you wrote the rules, or you agree with the rules, so you love that about Billings. But maybe the fact, if they have cameras everywhere and they are spying everywhere, I wouldn't be surprised if they know he has the syndrome. So it's like, let's get this guy in as sheriff at what they originally wanted, or now chief deputy. Let's get him in there. He'll follow the rules. And if for any reason he gives us any trouble, we can just bust him for the syndrome and then put somebody better in. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, you totally spoiled something I had for later on just now.
No. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
okay.
It's all right. No
I'll
one's
edit it
listening
out.
anyway. No. Don't worry about it.
Juliette has really been, once again, I've not been so tough on her all these episodes, but she's taken a bunch of L's in this episode. It's almost like her Jiminy Cricket is Walker down there on the bottom of the silo. And she can't bring a toaster in and have her therapy repairing the toaster catfish. So they've got to have a discussion of like, you know, hey,
on the illegal radio.
On the illegal radio, you're right. But they've got to have a discussion. And Juliette's like saying, you know, I need to leave this. To hell with justice for George. He's not the person I thought he was. And then Walker, it's a long quote, but I pulled it because Walker's response was wonderful. What kind of person are you? The man you love was murdered, and now you're saying it's a waste of time to find out why? I don't know what happened, but when you left here, love had you trying to do the right thing. Now anger is making you give up. She's saying finish the job. It's Walker giving a campaign slogan. She should run against Bernard for mayor. I thought this was an effective scene.
It was. I mean, it was a little bit of a waste of time because she could have just said nut up and that would have taken less time. And Juliette could have also said to her, you know what I found out about George? He's horrible and he used me. So
yeah,
forget that. Why would I want to keep finding out information about this dude who all my illusions and thoughts and hopes about him turned out he was just a jerk.
All righty. Well, Juliette is going to finish the job as best you can say. She goes to Regina, the cat lady, who is the rat lady.
And the cat. Yep.
What's funny is I kind of assumed that as soon as we saw Regina. I thought, well, obviously she's the one who told Billings and people that George had the Pez dispenser. That's the only way I could figure out how they would know George had the Pez dispenser. Regina says, no, I didn't tell Judicial. Judicial comes during the day. She's afraid of the night man. Lee. The man who knows everything, he comes at night. We're going to talk about him on the podcast that knows nothing and you download in the morning.
I love it. So if just follow me a little bit on this. Okay. So let's think about Sims now. Because before I had thought, okay, Sim's father and the group that Sim's father joined, that's Judicial. But now I'm thinking, no, that's another group that Judicial doesn't even know about. So Sims could actually be a mole in Judicial for this completely other group.
There are layers upon layers. I mean, as there are multiple layers of this silo, there are everything. Regina was visited by a man in the night, and it's made Regina, you know, completely paranoid, crazy, as you describe her. She's got baking sheets up on the wall to block people from listening and possible, as we find out at the end of the episode, maybe possibly prevent people from watching. Whoa,
Bubba, I know who comes at night.
Who?
It's Copernicus.
Lucas. He comes at night on his way up to go see the stars. He visits people. Whoa. Listeners, who do you think the night man is? I still think it could be Sims. I still think, and I'll get to reasons why in a bit, but oh my goodness gracious. And let me say, yes, you listeners, you know I'm a book reader. This description of Nightman, there's no Nightman in the book either. So, wow. So I feel like I can guess, but oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow. Regina, now you give it up for her. She's like, listen, I gave up the name of George. And that was and what got me is another day my mom didn't have to spend in the mines for holding a relic. Wow. Wow. And she claims the reason why they killed George is because he didn't give up this hard drive. She must have told the night man, whoever, that, hey, George has that hard drive. They went to him, said, give us the hard drive. I imagine this type of crew, they'd kill him either way. But he didn't give it up. And so they definitely killed him, is what Regina says. Ooh.
And then Regina gives, for some crazy reason, maybe because she just wants it out of her life, and also she wants to get Juliette killed. She gives her there's something inside the mat. She's like, this is passed down from before the silo. They always lift and turn the mat over. They never look inside. But then Regina warns you. She says, this will get you killed.
Dang. Juliette goes back to her place. This is the part of the episode where I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. Juliette looks at the item It seems to be a book for kids. The Amazing Adventures in Georgia, a travel guide for kids.
But that's really why you gave this episode a 9, because the book is focused on Georgia. That's why you gave it a 9. You're like, heck yes, Georgia represented.
The Chattahoochee National Forest. I've been there. The Chattahoochee River is maybe 3 miles right over there. It shows pictures of the Georgia Aquarium. You've been there with me, Catfish.
Yep.
The beaches of the Golden Isle and Tybee Island. I lived for about half a year on Tybee Island. And it really don't go to Tybee Island. Go to the Golden Isles. Go to Jekyll Isle. It is so great. This is incredible. Do you remember us going to the Georgia Aquarium, Catfish?
We went to the Georgia Aquarium and we weren't anywhere close to getting killed the way Regina says could happen. But
yeah,
we were almost brought down by the sour plum soda at the Coca-Cola Museum. So I would say the most dangerous thing would be the Coca-Cola Museum.
But wait, there's more.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's not just that. Wait a minute. Look at this awesome relic from the before times. Someone is watching Juliette. No, not someone. 2 different people. Oh. They've got a wall of monitors seeing this, and they're like, hey, we got to wake him up. And he's like, he's asleep. This is serious. We got to wake him up. This is where my head went. Is this the janitorial room that Sims was talking about? Do you know what's in there? The people who were watching, I'm not sure they were in overalls, but they were wearing clothes that, yeah, if a janitor was wearing them, you wouldn't look twice. Are these the friends of the silo? The people that Paul Billings said don't exist? And then the message, hey, double the flowers in front of the mirror. Holston was saying, block the mirrors. Juliette never did it. Oh, snap.
But where were these people when she was planting the Pez dispenser?
Wonderful question. She had to go all the way to the very bottom because the Pez dispenser, was underneath mechanical, down where the digger is, down where that body of water is. She had to grab it. There's no cameras there, you would assume. She maybe keeps it in her pocket all the way up top. And maybe they don't have a camera in Doug Trumbull's bathroom, maybe. I have no idea.
But they would know at least she was there. The question is,
right,
do they have any recording capabilities or do they just have to catch things live? But still, it seems like a lot of suspicious behavior could have been caught by these people already. And Bubba, there's the exciting end of the episode, which leads me right into our judicial debate too. And again, you've read the book, so I don't know how much you want to answer. So that's what I focused on. You have to wake him up. So instead of asking who's him, I have a different question. My question is, there was a long time before we met the head of judicial, and it seemed to be kind of a letdown, to be honest. Yeah. Is him someone we've met yet or not? And I'm going to say, I think him is someone we have not met yet.
I don't want to spoil the book. I want everybody to read the book. But all I can say is they've spun this in ways to where I suspect we have met the him that they're going to wake up.
Okay.
But I couldn't bet my life on it. I suspect we have, but
can we bet Juliette's life on it?
Let's bet. I feel so bad for Paul. Let's put him out of his misery. We'll bet Paul Billings' life on it.
Paul, he's the most innocent guy here so far.
Oh no. Listeners, what do you think? Who do you think is the him? Who are they waking up? A lot of options, but let me say it also could be somebody.
There's a lot of options. We've got Sims.
Right.
We've got the Bernard.
Right.
We have Copernicus.
Right.
We have our buddy Kennedy. Could be him.
Okay, he could be.
That would be great if it was Kennedy. I would love it if it was Kennedy. All right, Bubba. Now it's time for what I like to call the double D's, double C's.
Double D's, double C's.
Yeah, daringly dumb catfish questions.
Ooh, okay. Well,
The first one, and again, we this is, like I said, there's a little bit of we kind of talked about it a little earlier.
Sure.
Billings seems like a decent person who could actually be a good cop.
Yeah.
Knowing what we do about judicial, why did they want a guy who would be a good cop for the sheriff job?
Well, we've already talked through a handful of these things. Number one, he is such a stickler for the pack, it's ridiculous. Number two, if you need something over everybody, like we know George has this Pez dispenser, but that's fine. If I ever need to bust him for whatever reason, I can claim, it's because you have the Pez dispenser. If Billings is hiding that he has the syndrome, He knows the pact. He'll follow the pact, put him in. Hopefully he'll do a great job. But if for whatever reason he thinks he's going to get out of line, oh, Billings, you've got the syndrome. That means you're under arrest. You didn't report it. You're in big trouble. And so that would be another reason why you do it. Maybe a third reason why you do it is that we know Billings was in judicial for a bit. Now, once again, he could be completely evil, but let's say they were trying to, when Billings was in judicial, they were trying to be like, okay, this is the way it's got to play. This is the way we got to roll it. And he wasn't quite as willing. They could just get the vibe that, this Doug Trumbull guy, he'll kind of do anything we want him to do. Billings won't. He follows the rules, but he's not willing to play ball 100%. Let's put him somewhere else and put him in as sheriff. Maybe that's why. What do you got?
I really like that last one. Well, okay, that was kind of my ideas, your first couple things. But then you came up with something that I didn't think of at the end. So that leads me to believe that you're smart.
Yeah.
All right. Catfish
Another question?
Question number 2. Did they plan the whole season ahead of time? Or did they write episode 6 and go like, oh, we need the shakes, so let's go back and put something small in it about episode 5? Because we need Juliette to be able to blackmail Billings with it in episode 6.
Wonderful question. Again, the listeners, I hope you don't mind. I never really like talking about the books at all, but I've done it a little bit in this podcast. The syndrome, these shakes are not in the book. The only thing I can say is that the signs about, watch for the syndrome, they have been in the background since the very beginning. But you're right, Catfish. It's like we mention it so that dun, 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 it's a big thing. It's almost a bit like, and this is not a fair comparison, because Game of Thrones had this character who had this disease called grayscale, and she was in the show was in the show for a long time. But literally in one season, they have a long discussion about how she caught grayscale and how, everybody was worried about this disease. And in the very next episode, another main character got grayscale. And so to me, I can see that plays, that's very similar to what they did here. We learned about the syndrome last week, really just so we could unload it on the audience this week. Any other thoughts, Catfish, or they didn't plan it out wisely? What do you think?
Well, that's what I think. It kind of comes off as, also, I don't really know, like you, I saw the comparison to grayscale.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that is clear about grayscale is that eventually it leads to death. You have to be, you can pass it to other people.
Yeah.
So you have to be isolated. So it's very clear what the end game is for it. There's no clarity to me what the end game is for the shakes here.
Right.
Does it make people crazy? Is there a reason why you have to hide it? If it just makes you shake, that's no big deal. I can understand why not being able to do it, because you need just physically, you need to be physically fit to be a cop. Marnes notwithstanding. But so to me, because we don't know what the end result is, other than like, okay, it just makes you shake, it's really not enough. We should know more about it, or it shouldn't be a thing. That's pretty much my feeling.
Okay, listeners, hey, we always talk about this. We love it when you give us feedback on these things we pose at Double PHQ, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Double PHQ, down in the YouTube comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Okay,
we're going to have thoughts for one more thing. Here's our last daringly dumb catfish question.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Did they plan the whole season ahead of time? Or did they spend so much time with Crazy Cat Lady and her conspiracies to get us thinking about people watching 15 minutes ahead of the time that they actually showed people watching?
Catfish, I don't think that's a true fair argument. In the very first episode, Crazy Conspiracy Lady Gloria was turning on her faucet because she thought, I think people are listening. Last week in episode 5, we had Sandy, the angry secretary there at the sheriff's office, saying, you know what, I'm going to leave this place. I don't like it. I always feel like I'm being watched. Like, that's what she said. And so I think that is enough of a setup to hit us with, oh my goodness, Big Brother is everywhere and they are watching and they're in your house. I think that's fine.
I think it would have been cooler then in that case not to have such an explicit description by the cat lady. In other words, it's like they gave us hints and then we get a reveal of like, oh my God, this is worse than we thought. You know, basically Cat Lady describes the whole situation to us shortly before we see it. So to me, it's like, I see where you're coming from. Then let's not have the Cat Lady spoil it for us right before it happens.
Okay. Hey, once again, we love your feedback, listeners. Catfish, I think they're not completely dumb questions. They're smart questions posed dumbly.
Posed dumbly. Yeah, just said in a dumb way. All right, I like that.
No. I think those are all good questions. We love everybody's feedback. In fact, our opinions aren't what matter. Yours do. We got so much feedback. We'll try to burn through it.
Yeah,
we got a lot of feedback on episode 5. First and foremost, Catfish, do you love our loyal listener at EndlessMike03?
I love, you know, there's like 5 or 6 loyal listeners that go way back that I love the most, and Endless Mike 03 is one of them.
For sure. He gave this 8 out of 10 double Bs.
This is episode 5, double Bs.
Yeah, buzzed Bernards.
Yeah.
He's drinking so much alcohol. I love it. Mike wrote, Juliette is lucky she has strong forearms when she's hanging off the stairs. People are jumping at the chance to join the Judicial Shadow.
They're falling all over Judicial. All right, one of the people who is not one of the 5 or 6 I mentioned is Matt Murdock at Musical Concepts. He gave episode 5 8.3 out of 10 double E's.
Wait, double E's?
Yeah, embarrassing eulogies.
Oh, yeah.
Matt says, I would prefer people just don't say anything when I'm gone. The silence would be better as opposed to speeches like those.
Man. Bernard is going to have so many jokes for your funeral, double M. It's going to be painful.
All right, so we had 1 out of 2 of my favorites. Now we'll have 2 out of 3 of my favorites. Whoa. Laura McMillian at Meso Cat says, we've enjoyed every episode and are pretty much invested in the series. But last night, my husband commented they seem to just be going in circles, which I found kind of funny.
Yes, they are going in circles, up and down the stairs, circles. Very good, Laura. Hey, Catfish, this is all, we've got all loyal listeners right here at the top. Our good buddy Peter Connolly from Australia said, I watched episode 5 of Silo, and he thought when they were doing the run to the top race.
By the way, down under, they do the run in the opposite direction.
So when Peter writes, when they're doing the run to the top race, you know, it's not really a spectator sport, giving that after they go 1 or 2 levels above you, it's not like you can see anything else. They're not huge TV screens to watch the end of the race. Yeah, it is kind of a lame thing.
That's why we were wondering why people are still hanging out, just presumably waiting for the stragglers, or I don't know. There was nothing else to do.
Peter asks, when Juliette found the rat poison and picture in the room of the guy who was being framed, why didn't she just take him then to stop the guy from being framed? He believes it didn't make sense how she knew exactly what they were going to do to try to arrest him. Peter wrote, I prefer the way the book tells the story. He's not such a fan of mystery boxes. Ooh, so that's him. We got more feedback, though. 1D Forever, who's trying to join the top 5. 1D Forever wrote, I enjoyed this episode. The tone fit something that felt like it could have been in the book. I agree with you. The show writers want to tell a mystery more than they want to explore the story as it plays in the book. But he said a great podcast. Ooh, thank you for saying that, 1D Forever. And he says he looks forward to listening to us every week. Ooh, thank you so much.
He's going to be so sad when he misses this one after listening to this for a few minutes and then turning it off.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Jacob 2046 says, after episode 5, I don't know if it's the writing, acting, but the characters of the show don't seem believable. Maybe it's a casting issue. I don't know. From the first episodes of the Game of Thrones, he felt like they were who they were. Ned, Jon, Cat, Bran, they felt believable. It didn't take a season or 2 to believe them.
Yep.
Also, again, we seem to have books versus show. I'm not a fan of it. If they don't do the books as they are, if not, then why do them at all? It's all they're written, just clean them up.
Jacob, you know, some people obviously gave episode 5 highs. People also had trouble with episode 5. Episode 6, though, our only feedback so far, because we record this literally, the episode hasn't even been out 12 hours. Matt Murdock, again, said, hey, he's read the first book, Wool, and he's only read the first book. He often gets frustrated with the jazz hands the show sometimes is waving. Ooh, look over here. No, wait, look over there. Yeah. But then in episode like episode 6, they actually get me invested in the character. And with this episode, I can see the narrative coming together better overall. And now I'm actually really enjoying this approach that I was cursing for the last 3 or 4 episodes. Matt writes, there's still some accent quality control issues,
Oh,
but
boy.
otherwise, he's giving episode 6 of Silo 9.2 out of 10 double C's.
Oh, it's something that has to do with Catfish?
No. He said Chattahoochee chapters.
Oh, man. We've got some general thoughts, though, from our good old buddy Bucho.
There's
He
New
says-
Zealand. We got Australia, and now we got New
Yes.
Zealand, Bucho.
Oh, man, New Zealand. Bucho, just let me know when I can work on your farm. He says, yes, Catfish Future Man was so double D.
Wait, double D?
Dang delightful.
You guys love that show, Future Man.
Pleased. Future. Oh, God, it's so good. I'm pleased to have a fellow Future Man follower.
Love it. A new person, I haven't noticed this person giving feedback before, Pep Pest wrote, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but to him, the listeners were spies or confidential informants.
Confidential informers. And he said probably janitorial. That's what we're thinking now, that there's
Catfish.
That
What
judicial.
if we've been fearing
Yep.
judicial this whole time and we got to fear the janitorial staff? Wow.
Man, I tell you, what I'm more worried about is a janitorial strike. Who's going to clean this place up?
Silo up, yeah.
All right, and Chocolate Giddy Up says, take a shot. Every time he says Bubba, shot.
Awkward. Okay, now a big bit of feedback from somebody with the handle Get Mic'd.
Do it.
Wrote, oh man, there's so much to talk about. Firstly, I found Double P through the Only Murders in the Building podcast, and I've been working my way through Magpie Murders and Silo now too. Keep up the great work. You're a great beacon for good shows to watch. Thank you so much, Get Mic'd. Oh, that is so kind. On the first 4 episodes that he's watched of Silo, he says, I love a good mystery show, but like Catfish, I think I'm a bit mysteried out recently. I felt Silo started very strong, but they've killed so many engaging characters, and most of the remaining characters have been unpleasant to be around, particularly Juliette.
It's not just me.
Get Mike wrote, my other big issue is that the show spends a lot of time on things that end up not mattering. For example, the transactional relationship between Juliette and Marnes. You solve my murder, I'll solve yours. So they spend time on that. But by the end of the episode, Marnes is dead. Plus the conflict between Juliette and Sandy, they spend that and they seem to come to an understanding, but then Sandy just ends up leaving. And so he didn't feel good after episode 4. He said the generator episode kind of took him out of it.
You know what? I love Liz. I love what he's saying because he's agreeing with me on some things, but also he's noting some things that I think are fabulous. I did not notice, and it's completely true, the Juliette and Marne stuff and the Juliette and Sandy stuff is a complete time waster, and we get nothing out of it. Now, we'd asked a question. One of the Catfish's dumbass questions last week was a TV show that started strong, but you ended up hating, and get Mike to answer that question. And I want to note that I love it when we ask questions and people actually are like, you know what, I'm going to respond to these idiots with the real answer. And get Mike said Suits.
Oh.
It was so great in its early seasons, but in its later life, every scene was just arguing. Someone leaves the scene mad. The remaining person gives a lingering look.
We're going to do that on our podcast. We'll get angry at each other. Catfish will get mad. He'll leave, and I'll just lingering look.
It reminds me, I can't remember what show it was, but I used to tape a show.
Yeah.
And I'd always get like the last minute of Law and Order SVU.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like every show, the last minute was the lead, Mariska Hargitay. The music is swelling, and she's just giving the same look every time to the show. I was like, my God, there it is. So thank you very much for all that feedback. Get mic'd. Willie the Mac says, isn't this the mile-long cities the NWO wants to imprison the entire human race into? What's left after the global genocide? Only horizontal instead of vertical? They are telling us exactly what they intend to do to us.
Catfish, I hope you love that feedback. I put that in specifically for you from good old Willie the Mac.
I love it.
Now, we do have a couple more feedback from people who are having trouble with Silo. So if you're okay with listeners who do have trouble with the show, listeners, let's read them. Aria gave us this feedback where she wrote, can someone just tell me how it ends? Did the first 2 people die when they walked outside, or was it an illusion created by the camera? This show is boring, although I would like to know the end result. Whoever read the book, please feel free to tell me the ending. Thanks. Aria, well, if you watch our
Don't watch the
YouTube
spoiler
video
ones.
labeled, if you watch the
No.
YouTube video labeled book rant, that tells you some of the answers. We'll say that. But we don't want to spoil
You're not spoiling
everybody.
enough. You're not spoiling enough,
Apparently
Bubba. You
not.
better do some real spoilers in this week's spoiler part.
All right. Now, Ruben Diaz wrote, I stopped watching the show. Now, Ruben has never read the books. He says, Silo reminds me of Lost, bringing up 1,000 mysteries and questions, but never really giving many answers. Just some uninteresting murder mystery involving a bunch of miserable, uninteresting characters. It's like they decided to make the most boring version of the Fallout games. Ouch.
Now, I will say this.
Yeah.
The answers are in the book.
Yeah, they're coming.
So you can read it, and I assume that the answers are coming to the show. The problem with Lost was, as I took a workshop one time with a writer that they brought on to later seasons, was they had no idea where it was going. They were just throwing things up against the wall, the numbers, the hatch, all that stuff. They just were like, oh, it'd be interesting. Let's just throw in a polar bear. These people have read the book. They're going to answer the questions. For some reason, they've decided that the answer to these questions are better as surprises that come near the end rather than information that happens as we see it on the show. But you will get the answers, or you can just read the book. It's a brisk read.
Exactly right. We have some more people who just listened to our book talk section and gave us some feedback, and this is non-spoilery, so listeners, you don't have to leave.
It's all non-spoiler, apparently.
I never pronounced this correctly, Catfish. How do you pronounce this?
It's Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil
42 wrote, I'm worried about deviations from the books. It may lead to a great show, but it has the risk of becoming another Foundation. And he definitely agrees that Marnes's death should have had more weight. Now, Catfish, I haven't seen Foundation. I thought you were enjoying that show.
I am enjoying that show. I mean, it's hard to compare this to Foundation. This book is... The book Wool and this show is happening in a very short period of time. And Foundation has always been called unfilmable because the series takes part over thousands of years. So I actually, watching Foundation, think they're doing a decent job with the characters. I will see what happens next season on it. I will say I found Foundation. I was able to watch all of Foundation, and I gave up on the Lord of the Rings show because I thought that show was too boring. So,
well, we do a podcast on Lord of the Rings, and as somebody who isn't really know anything about Lord of the Rings other than movies, I thought the show was pretty good, and especially the end. Really, it did turn on the action. Maybe just too late. Is Silo doing the same thing? We got to be careful. A user with the handle Mr. Plus -2 says that they're upset that they changed the name from Wool to Silo. He believes that author Hugh Howey had said in the past, wool over your eyes is why he named the first short story Wool. So he's upset they changed that. A user by the name of Christina is still upset.
Oh, no,
She's
come
like,
on. I got to read this one. It's
okay,
so
read
good.
it. Read
Christina Souza says, dude, you have yet to mention a single spoiler. Am I the only one that wants the spoiler and wants to know what happened in the book? Why do you keep saying spoilers ahead and you don't mention anything that happens in the book?
I'm sorry, Christina. We're going to fix that this week.
You better.
Catfish, this may be your 5th favorite loyal listener, Nick Fortuna. Look,
I
Nick
love it.
Fortuna's given us feedback. What do you say, Catfish?
Nick said, if I start a show first, I generally finish the show before diving into the book, and vice versa. If I start with the book, exception was Game of Thrones, I started reading the books after season 1. I couldn't get enough of that world.
I think that's a generally good idea, Nick.
It's definitely a good idea.
Catfish keeps busting me. He's like, you reread the book right before the show started. And yes, that made me more knowledgeable, but I got to be honest, Catfish. I read this book 10 years ago, and I still remember kind of that first reveal, which the show still hasn't completely spelled out. I still remember it from 10 years ago. I wasn't going to forget it.
I mean, if you really do remember all these spoilers, perhaps you should put them in the spoiler section.
Never.
All right. We're missing my last loyal listener, which is Dooley's Left Legs, but I'm going to go on anyway. Stokers to Channel says, okay, I finished Shift and Dust. Definitely won the battle of me spending my money on the books. Can't believe y'all talked about my comment. Wasn't expecting that. Stokers, here you are again.
Here we go. Trusted source Preston B said, You should definitely say goodbye to Catfish. He's inhibiting us from getting the spoilers we want. Oh, how unfair.
This is not my fault. I
It
leave,
is not your fault.
and then he's allowed to say whatever he wants, and he still is playing games with you. I would strike against Bubba unless he really, Bubba, drink, Bubba, drink, Bubba, drink. Strike against him unless he really gives you some spoilers this time. I want spoilers, Bubba, all the way up, drink, to where we are in book 6. I want them all there.
All righty. Okay, now listen. We are going to have book talk. The beginning of book talk won't have spoilers, but then we will go to a spoiler section.
Sure.
But if you want to leave now, please subscribe to us, follow us on social media, talk to us. This feedback is brilliant. Look at Catfish's big smile. He's loved it. If you're leaving now, please be sure to join us for episode 7, The Flame Keepers. Bernard seeks Juliette's cooperation as he grows increasingly concerned about the silo's security. And Juliette asks her father for a favor. Ooh.
We'll talk about that on next episode of The Cleaning.